Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Twonk Hammer Entertainment presents.
You fucked it up already.
Yeah, I screwed it up already. Welcome, guys. My name's Dan. I'm here to do some Let's Play of Tales of Xillia. I'm a member of the Twonk Hammer Entertainment family. I am joined tonight by... Please introduce yourselves.
Of course, this is me, Lord Strell. How's it going, folks?
And I'm Tempest, another Let's Player for the Twonk Hammer crew.
And like I said, today we will be doing a Let's Play of Tales of Xillia, or continuing what we've already started. You can find us all, you can find the Twonk Hammer Entertainment family on at twonkhammer.com, facebook.com/twonkhammer, youtube.com/twonkhammerent, and twitter.com/twonkhammer. And please, I'm watching chat as we go through all of this, so feel free to interact with us as you see fit. So without further ado, let's continue our Let's Play. So I think last time we left off at an inn somewhere. It's been a while since I've played this save, so I think I don't even know what I'm doing, and that's what R1 is for. It will bring up your next objective. And
that's one thing about the Tales games that always bugged me, is if you took a long break from them, there was really not a good system of basically nudging you where you left off.
Yes, you're exactly right, and that's exactly why I like this R1 system. You can, which is the right first button, and you can just kind of press that and see where you have to head next.
Talk to Alvin and head out.
Yes.
Yes, it's a very nice feature. Other games use log systems where your current quest objective is set off in a quest log. You can always look back at it.
Or it's something as immersive as a journal, just saying like this is what we events that we encountered last.
Ready to hit the road?
Mila, you said it's north of here?
Now we have another cutscene with Han Solo.
Yes.
Still waiting for Chewbacca to make his appearance.
And I do a terrible Chewbacca.
I do terrible. I'm terrible also. I'm absolutely god awful.
I don't even attempt it. You guys are welcome to keep practicing, though. I will laugh.
Please, let's not have a repeat of the George Lucas Christmas special. please, let's not have a rendition of Wookiees trying to do Christmas carols.
Yes. Yes, that sounds very good to me.
Well, I made the mistake of actually YouTubing that.
Oh God.
Here's the advice to you guys. I watched it from start to finish. Only to say that I have watched it. Never again. The main character's expression is my face when I think about that freaking special.
Maybe you could use your connections to score me some high-paying intelligence work.
Oh my goodness.
Back to the previous topic about the journal.
Yes.
Not just previous games to this, but this is one of those things where in game design, you see good ideas get tweaked and propagate a bit. Because I can tell you, there's a game that I loved to death. Not a great game, mind you, but certainly a good game. But there's a point where I almost always get completely freaking lost. Because the series of quests that you do feels like you're taking so far out of the main storyline that I can't remember what I was originally doing in the first place. And that's Lufia, the original Lufia, and the Seneschals. I don't remember what the subtitle of that was called. But there's a point where, like, you need to fix the ship to go get the dual blade in the sunken island. And you have to do so much, go through like 3 different areas to finally repair the submarine. And by the time you're done, I'm like, why was I fixing the ship? Where do I go?
Yeah, that's one of the things that I personally have big quips with in terms of games that don't give you some means of, backtracking or monitoring where you were or what was last said in the quest dialogue. It's just one of those things that you're constantly having... What was I doing again? Oh yeah, I was doing this. I mean, it's like if you're gonna make a very broad and adventurous type of game, you need some method to the madness of being able to figure out where you were supposed to go. There was speaking of games like that though, there was another game that was near and dear to my heart when I was a kid. And unfortunately, I was very masochistic in the sense that I didn't have the memory pack for it. This goes back to the N64. For anyone who doesn't remember, there were certain games out there where the games were so large that they actually couldn't have their own save files. So you actually had have these little memory pack things that went into the bottom of your controller to actually have your save data.
Well, I remember those.
Yeah. So this was a game called Quest 64. I don't know if either of you two played this.
That game. Yes.
And let me tell you, I tried a number of different times to beat this game without any saves to go back to. Pretty much, I was literally walking on shards of glass the entire game. I was like literally going back to heal, grinding it up, and just making sure I could get through the areas safely without having to worry about dying, because if I died, it was literally game over. Hardcore mode for some, but my parents never got me a memory card at the time. I made it to the final boss.
I did have a memory card. I never finished that game. It didn't hold my interest. It was when I first started playing it, I thought it was amazing because there was nothing like it. I liked being able to draw the magics and everything. That it was so different from everything else. But I don't know. It just kind of fell flat. As open as it was, I ended up playing. I think. What was it? Final Fantasy 3? No, that was Super Nintendo. I got some other game. It was probably Smash Brothers or something, and I was playing that all the time and just never went back to Quest 64.
Yeah, for me, it was more like after that one attempt, I was like, you know what? I'm done. I might as well say I beat the game because I got through the game without saving once.
I got to the last boss. That counts.
Oh my goodness, yeah. But in terms of like game mechanics and designs that were referencing or particularly saying how their implementation into games is so important, it's kind of funny how a lot of game developers these days have been taking mechanics from MMORPGs. If you haven't noticed, in a lot of newer games nowadays, they've been having things more MMO-esque like features. I'm not saying the quest log.
They don't even have to be that new. I mean, on the PlayStation, there was Summoner, and Summoner had as limited as the graphics were. It was meant to feel more like a multiplayer game, even though it was single player. You had a full party, they had AI scripts that acted independently of yours, but you could control them. Later on, you get Final Fantasy 12, that was a lot like that. And they introduced the gambits that allowed you to control the characters. I think they were called gambits there.
That's true.
I believe you're correct. Yeah, gambit, I mean, granted, the gambit system was difficult to arrange and master. Particularly...
Yeah, but the point is that they were attempting to give console gamers that familiar feel that so many PC gamers had. Like, Final Fantasy 12 is probably the better example, since the Summoner was as open a game as it was. There was very limited areas you could actually go and do anything. Areas would only show up on the map because you had a quest to go there. Otherwise, they wouldn't be available to go. But in Final Fantasy 12, you could pretty much go just about anywhere. There was some plot walls, and your only restriction was there a monster too strong for you to kill in that area? Were you level 10 and ran into that level 14 or 16 werewolf in the next area? You really couldn't do that at the time.
No. Not particularly.
But they gave you that exploration feel without giving you that huge world feeling that you usually got when you got access to the airship or something. You felt like you could explore very early in the game compared to other Final Fantasies where it was very linear. You could really only go over here to progress.
And that's actually been one of the complaints about this particular game. It kind of models itself off of the Final Fantasy 13 was it model, where the areas aren't necessarily open and wide. They're larger, but so you can explore, but there's a...
And there she goes looking at his hand again.
Yes, she was looking at his hand. There's a real definite path that you have to travel. So there's... One of the complaints has been that there isn't really open exploring to this particular game, and that seems to be the trend in the latest JRPGs.
Well, see, I don't mind that so much, but the... how can I put it? Originally, I talked about how game developers add on and borrow good ideas from other games that maybe weren't implemented so well, and they move them forward and tweak them. The first open-world game I ever played was Ultima Exodus, Ultima 3. And that was on the regular Nintendo. I didn't have the computer version. I don't think I had a computer back then. But when you start that game, you create a party and you're tasked to go help the king, and you're just in the world. You have to find out what things there are to do. There's quests to do. People give you hints about marks in caves and where a key is, and eventually I think you got a balloon. You get the hint about how to get to Ambrosia through the whirlpool, but there is nothing linear about the game, and the game has a good story, but you have to seek it out. And the thing about JRPGs, as opposed to Ultima, which was made here, is that they were always so story-driven that you had to make it linear, because if you gave the player too much freedom, you couldn't really progress the story.
Right.
And I'd have to say the most interesting mechanic that contradicted that was Majora's Mask, because the entire story was told in 3 days.
Yeah.
So you didn't actually have to do things in order, but you had to repeat the story over and over, so you saw it from so many different angles.
True.
But the linear nature of RPGs is generally something that's very difficult to get away from. An open-world game often means that you have a shallower story. Skyrim, as much as I love it, really isn't very deep. It's just a lot of little stories.
It's a lot of stuff.
Yeah. Whereas a game like Tales of Xillia can have a lot of character development. You can get emotionally invested in the characters because there's progression.
True.
So I wouldn't... I can see people criticizing this game for being linear, but I wouldn't hold it against a JRPG, provided the story was done well. And this one's fairly interesting.
So far, so good. I mean, characters involve a med student and a demigod who knows nothing of humanity.
Oh yes, and this is something I happen to love. I love when you mix magic in a more modern setting. Ancient magic is interesting, you know, you get the Skyrim's type medieval things, but when you put it in a modern setting like this, it can get very interesting when magic meets technology. Final Fantasy VIII did it really well. The Tales games tend to have a nice mesh for it, especially Tales of Destiny. I know I mentioned that game a few times already, because it was the last one in the series that I played, but there was a lot of technological differences in that game, especially with the way they portrayed the lenses, as the Lens Corp was gathering these things from monsters when they died, and that's how they made the gels. These materials that they were using for currency were because they were traded and used for everything that this Lens Corp was producing.
This is true. So do you have any comments, Lord Strell? You've been awfully quiet this episode.
Didn't drop the call, did he?
No, he's still there.
Turn your mic back on.
Seems we have lost a host momentarily.
Strell has fallen. Call the medic. Oh well.
Oh well, yeah.
As I was saying, the iteration of mechanics is always a good thing. Sometimes they don't quite fit, but as long as they keep trying to improve and make a game more user-friendly so you can focus on the gameplay, I'm usually very happy about that.
Yeah.
You know, if you compare this Tales game to previous Tales games, those little features stand out, like the animated faces during the battles when they're talking to each other, even though you're in the middle of a very active combat scene. The quest helper, basically.
Yeah. And the quest helper actually made its first appearance, I think, in Tales of Xillia, which is 2 Tales games ago. And if General is in chat, I think he can verify or deny that, or debunk that rather. But we shall see.
And more gel, hooray! Now, as I have often done in previous episodes, I got talking so much that I forgot what exactly was happening in the story. So why don't you fill us in a little bit, Dan?
So what's happening so far is we actually, well, yeah, we're doing a bunch of battles to level up, so on and so forth. But we actually have to go and we have to get to Niakara, which is Mia's home village, so it's kind of where she was born. So we discover there some of her backstory and some of what makes her who she is, even though she is basically a god reborn.
Right, but obviously she wasn't always a god reborn, or she wouldn't have a hometown.
That can be debated, actually.
Well, you can do reincarnation stuff, I guess, like in the Lunar series, where Luna didn't know she was the goddess. She was reborn as a human.
Yeah. So actually, and it's kind of explained in part of this, part of the storyline. I forget if it was past or present, but really, since Mia is kind of the goddess of all the elements, a human body, according to this game's mythology, is made up of all 4 elements. So because she is a goddess, she can take human form. But the way she puts it, she can't just inhabit any body. Her body, she has to choose to inhabit, and then that body has to grow up. So she actually has to be born into the world. It's not that, oh, she likes Jude's body, let's go inhabit that.
Yeah, she's not possessing somebody, she's becoming herself repeatedly.
Yes, pretty much. So I think this is actually a good place to pause and do our little outro stuff for our episode stuff. But anybody who's joining us here in the live stream, we'll be streaming for another 40 minutes or so stay with us. So, we've been playing Tales of Xillia. You just witnessed or viewed, what, episode 4 is this? This is just episode 4, right? Yeah, I believe it is. So, we've had a blast so far. We've talked about a bunch of little things pertaining to Tales of Xillia and RPG mechanics and whatnot that all of us enjoy. You can find us all on twonkhammer.com, facebook.com/twonkhammer, youtube.com/twonkhammerent. The ENT is very important, as you will not find us without that ENT. You can also find us on twitter.com /Twonkhammer. And all of this is brought to you by Audible. Go sign up for your free audiobook at twonkhammer.com /audible. Yeah, there it is. And you get to choose any book in their library, and you get to keep that forever and a day. Seriously.
Because remember, folks, having your book read to you is 10 times more fun than actually reading it.
And so,
He shows up for the outro.
He shows up for the outro. Exactly. So, anyway, you can also find all of our podcasts on Stitcher.com, or the Stitcher service, or whatever that is at this point. So, without further ado, we're going to move right into the next episode, so stay with us.